Hey Jay,
Hey Tim, how are you, pal?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Two exciting games there tonight.
Yeah, I
They,
was watching the first game that started, and it was great all the way, and had a lot of drama in the last couple of minutes.
sure did, sure did. So glad to see the guys having fun. Seems like they're really enjoying the league. So
Yeah, it was really competitive. Of course, at the beginning of a league, it's hard for any one team to have a big advantage because everybody's got an equal shot in the inaugural draft. So it takes a few years before you really would see, a real advantage for one team over another. So the playoffs ought to be close.
yeah, yeah. Well, and of course, everyone. What we'll get into tonight, everyone's going to have different ways to build their team and builds around, the players that fall to them, and so, so that's I think that's why we're here, right, buddy?
Yeah, and we'll try to keep it short. We'll spend, of course, an hour or two on the Samifa Jets, but we can try to keep it short for the most part.
At least two, at least two. So
Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen. We're going to just kind of go over four topics. I'll let Jay take the lead on some of these, but one of the first ones was just the direction to kind of know, if you're about to draft or make trades, are you trying to win it this year? Are you trying to rebuild? There's no reason to go out and get a 1 year wide receiver if you're going to be a 3-13 team.
yeah, and while we're getting into this, Tim, we're getting together tonight. Yeah, we just want to talk about how to do retro leagues, right? And but that said, we're just two guys, right? And so what the way we do it might be different than somebody else, but we're both commissioners. He's commissioner of he calls it IFL, I call it IFL. I built the Tecmo. It was originally IFL 88. Built it off of Tim's vision with IFL, and so we're as commissioners, we just want to see we want to see the leagues competitive. We want to see guys having fun. And so that's why we're sharing a few of our thoughts, and so, but, take it for what it's worth, and do what you want, but we don't want to micromanage you, or anybody, it's just some tips, some things we picked up through the years.
Exactly. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. I personally like to build long term, but there's no reason for guys who feel like, oh, I kind of want to win some games each year. I don't really want to go through a 2 or 3 year rebuilding span. That's perfectly fine. All right. And all right. It's just we all have different ways. And, there's not any one way that's better or worse. But there are a lot of new GMs. Jay and I have been in a lot of retro leagues, and we were just chatting about it earlier, and just kind of felt like I'd kind of thought about doing a show about this, just to kind of throw out some things that I've learned over 13 years of being an IFL, and Jay's been in the league for a while, and we just thought some people might pick something up from it. There's a lot of stuff to do in the off season in a retro league.
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned, some guys want to rebuild, play for 2 or 3 years and then rebuild. It does tend to take longer to rebuild, I think. I don't know what you think, Tim, but I think it takes longer to rebuild in a league like this than it does in, a modern day league, because there's just everybody knows that everybody is. You're not going to sneak a 5th-round pick that's going to become a Pro Bowler. You're just not going to do it. So that's my thought.
Yeah, we've only had one successful on-the-fly rebuild where somebody just switched from a great team to a rebuild to right back to a great team, and that was what's now Chiba City. Alan did a great job a few years ago after having a championship team, I believe, in 71 or 70, actually. Broke it down in 71 off season before 72 draft, got a lot of picks. 2 or 3 years later, the team's back in the playoffs, but that's a real rarity.
Well, and he had a lot to work with there, and that his team was still stacked. So he had a lot of really good pieces that he could move, as opposed to something that was about dead. I remember Ron, I'll be talking about Ron Dickinson tonight, my old friend, your old friend, who longtime IFL founding member of IFL. Am I correct?
He is, and he's one of the he's probably the person I've discussed the league with more than anyone over the years. So, I'm sure he's listening tonight too.
Yeah. So we both thought the guy's coach's name, Chiba City, was Allen. We thought he was crazy for tearing that team down because it was so good.
It was.
So that's the only reason why he was able to turn it over like that, because it was just loaded. And we're like, what's he doing? He had Larry Brown, who was the MVP, and he traded him and just gutted all of his short-term guys who still had 2-3 years left, and and gutted them. And so now Dennis's Chiba City team is going to be a handful for a long time.
Yeah, one of the good things about deciding if you do go into a rebuild like he did at that time is he rebuilt while he was still strong. So he was able to take some of those guys that were 72, 73 values and turn them into players that would come into play in 74 and later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that, as opposed to a lot of times guys will just, eat the apple until you're just down to the very nub of the core, and so that's how he did it, and it worked out. So.
Yeah, or like we talk about, sometimes you can kind of look at your team and being in windows, and if you're in a bad window and you've got like a guy on his last great card, why would you leave him on your team to go 4-12 if you could have got a third or second round, fourth round pick for him?
Mm-hmm.
You help yourself down the road, and you don't get a whole lot of those opportunities. Sometimes you have to take advantage of the 2 or 3 players you might have that you can get something for at the end of their career.
Exactly. I don't know the agenda you have exactly how it's planned out, but you mentioned windows, and of course it's so key for me. I look at my quarterback, and I'm also going to be looking at my running backs and how they're correlated. Running backs come and go a lot quicker than quarterbacks, but we see the Emmitt Smiths and the Barry Sanderses that have the 10-year window where they're great throughout are so rare. Those guys are precious. But you look at your quarterbacks and you see when they're going to hit. But I got good years my quarterback year. 89, 90, and 94, right? And so you kind of work with that, and you kind of know what that is. And so, you look at your windows there is what I tend to do.
Always a good study in that. When I drafted him, I didn't know, what I was going to have available at 7. So I didn't really have a really big long-term thing. If I'd have drafted a guy who was great in 89, 90, 91, I'd have built my team differently. So I kind of went in the draft very, loose as far as plans go. But once I got Elway, I could sort of see I had 11-year career. First 5 were pretty shaky. He was only really good in 90 and had kind of things you could use the other 4 years. But then he's really solid from 93 to 98. And as the draft was kind of going along, for about 2 to 4 rounds, I was kind of like, this may be a fairly competitive right now team. Most of my picks were good for a year or two. And then we got into like rounds 5 and 6. And I was getting guys that weren't going to be good for several years. I was like, my chances of being good in 88, 89 is probably not so good. As more the draft evolved, I was kind of looking at it that way, that my team's really not that great in 88, 89. My best player's not that great. I'm not going to really weight a good card in 89 as much as I would weight it in 93 when Elway becomes good. So.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what my brother Steve did. In that inaugural draft, and he got Steve Young, and of course Steve Young, sits around as a backup, or he's in Tampa Bay, he's just not much until about 92, 93, and so he saw that window, he saw that was what the case was, and he's gonna, once we get to those years, he'll be a handful. So
yeah, and you look at like some of the way a lot of us kind of look at the draft. You've got rookies coming in. The main thing they could give you when you've got those draft slots are a number of years or a certain amount of value in a short period of time. Like if you get a great 3-year running back, if you got 2 or 3 years of Bo Jackson, maybe a short career, but that's obviously a first-round talent. But if you're talking about like a guard that's a 5'4" over 8 years, there's a lot of years there, but you're not getting a lot of for your, he fills a position, but it's nothing compared to getting a Bo Jackson. So
right, yeah, that's what Bob's doing with his LA Rams. He went in and picked up Okoye and Bo Jackson, and he knows his window is right now, and so he's already traded for a few players, and I guess he already traded for 3 players. He knows this is his window, and he's making the most of it. So yeah, that's he's doing I like the strategy.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at a couple of my notes to remember to talk about them, but you've got the years versus the impact, and a lot of times hidden things about rookies are special teams value. You get a 3rd wide receiver, 4th wide receiver who's got 4 kickoff return years that are pretty good. There's a lot more value there than just getting a guy who's got a little bit better, receiving career, because you're filling a roster spot, and those things become valuable over time when you're getting down to cuts or trying to fill out that last hole. Really nice to have a guy that can do more than one thing.
Yeah, especially if he's good. You picked up in IFL, you picked up Rick Upchurch and Billy White Shoes Johnson, and not only are they good receivers, but there are years where they are just a terror at returning kicks. And so
in our leagues, you can punt out of bounds, but there's still a lot of value in getting 14 yards without having to risk a fumble. So
absolutely. And then what I guess I didn't realize this, I had missed this. What is it? It's the strike year. 82, Upchurch has a touchdown on a 5 on his punt return. Did you know that all along?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen the 82. So I remember Kurt Klein had told me something about some of the 82 cards are really odd because of limited attempts. So
you've got that to look forward to. 1982, you have touchdown on a 5 on Rick Upchurch coming.
Yeah, wasn't it Lamar Parrish that had it on a 5 in 74?
What's that?
Lamar Parrish 74. I believe he had it on a 5, and he was like 18 yards a punt return that year. So
yeah. I guess he had fumbles on a 10, but who cares, right? So yeah. Just to kind of go over a couple of things I do, and I know Jay does some similar things, so he can hop in. I'm hoping I've got my screen shared here. Can you see the spreadsheet? Okay, yep.
Good. Yeah, there's a lot of information on these things. It's really hard during a draft, especially when you're trying to keep up with marking things off and things like that. Okay, I don't remember. Did I need a guard in 94 or am I thinking center, and it gets really difficult to kind of keep up with some of those. Some of the things I do before season, one, just kind of go through. I had 3 players retire or were guys that just dropped off my roster, and Jay's already got it marked on here for us. So I've got 3 IR kind of guys, 45 on the active roster. So I've got 3 spots without any cuts for rookies and guys I acquire and trade. So obviously I've got some cuts to make. So just kind of looking over my team without creating new roster requirements. I think that's a big part of going through cuts is you don't want to put yourself in a point where I'm cutting my backup center, but now I need another center because I only have one on the team. So I kind of go through and mark it. And the guys in yellow are sure cuts, guys that have no career left, or they're just going to be long-term zeros. And if I cut them, I can always draft a long-term defensive back 0 who brings nothing else to the table. So, but I've got some other guys like Rod Harris. He's a punt returner for me this year. Could be a kickoff returner, punt returner next year. But if I add a punt returner, that's a pretty cheap cut for me. And I don't want to cut my kicker, but I've got him noticed. If I get an upgrade during the draft, make a trade, that might be a spot that I make a movement on too. Some of these guys in green are guys that I'm possibly shopping in trade, and also guys that I have on a cut list if I get deep enough and want to keep other people that I might cut. So anyway, I just kind of do some preliminary scanning on stuff like that. And I'm just going to go to a ratings page I have. And I show 5 cuts, even though I've only got 2 listed. That's the 3 that have already happened because they retired, and the 2 I've already got. So I know I'm going to have to cut more if I'm going to keep more than 5 players. So here's some of my guys, like say, I've just kind of got listed. And I've also noted things I've got to fill requirements of. Like I've got to get a halfback, I've got to get an inside linebacker, a defensive back, and I need 2 spots of kickoff, and of course a coverage card to cover. So those are things I'll have to take care of during the draft and work around the cuts and not having to create new holes. I'll let Jay talk a little bit. I just kind of want to throw out how I kind of analyze kind of what I'm going into the off season with.
Yeah, that's slick there. And of course, guys are going to be at different spots pre-draft. The teams that have been, I don't want to say spinning their wheels, but the teams that are chasing right now tend to have more roster space. Because they've been burning up guys and using guys to fill holes. Tim, you've haven't been playing for the now as much,
right?
And and Steve, Chicago, they're going to be really short because they've been playing so long term that they're going to be trading off extra draft picks. And so, meanwhile, me. I've got a lot of extras here. It's easy for me to find cuts. As opposed to my Wilmington team in IFL, I built that up over a long period of time, and it's harder for me to have roster space for those. So guys are going to be different spots. Now, I think it'll really help take the edge off is how I'm doing the draft differently this time around. Just doing 5 rounds live, and then doing the another 5 rounds on a nightly basis. I think that's going to really help guys. And so it's not quite so hectic. And I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to, I love the live draft. There's so much drama. I love that. I know you don't mind email drafts, and they're fine. Clutter up the inbox is a bit much for my taste, but and it's one way to do it. It's all good, but there's many ways to, slice the pie. But I think I'm looking forward to the live element coupled with the dicier rounds, round 6 through 10 and thereabouts, where guys can take their time a little bit more with those. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll kind of keep the volume of people we really have to study for the live part of the draft down to like the first 6, 7 round kind of guys that you'd use, and you don't have to spend too much time getting ready for round 9. And but I love the aspect of the live draft too.
Yeah. And it's hard to keep up, when they're clicking, and then you miss a pick, right? And so you think you got your guy. It's happened to me. It happens to the best of us, right? I hate it when I miss a pick, and I get, I think I got the steal, and I type in, I'm drafting Tony Dorsett, right? And they're like, he was the first pick overall. Oh no, right? And so then you're scrambling and you feel like an idiot, and everyone's like, you just feel this pressure, and you see 30 seconds, you see 10 seconds, and so it happens. And so I think that you see those a lot in the later rounds, right? You see, not nearly as much in the earlier round, but in the later rounds. So I think this will help with that.
Yeah, my perfect draft must be in the future at some point, because I must have had 30 or 40 so far, and I haven't had one yet. Even, as prepared as sometimes I feel like I go into, sometimes you just overreach for some guy. Like for me, a blocking back I took early in round 5 last year, I'm like, really, I probably could have waited a round or two on this guy. And we all do that from time to time. I was going to bring up another point about getting nervous during a draft. If your pick's not ready, rather than just grab a guy, let yourself drop one slot. Spend an extra minute, let the other guy pick, and then pick a guy you like. Chances that he's taking the same guy, may not happen anyway. So,
yeah, no, it's a great point. And, don't compound your mistake. So,
yeah. And the one point Jay and I wanted to bring up about rookies was keep in mind the fumbles that you'll get comparing to like running back attempts, and especially beware special teamers. These guys can have a lot of fumbles. A guy like Brian Mitchell, for instance, is going to go high in the draft because he's a solo returner often, and he gives you some nice 5.1, I think, career rushing average. But a lot of these times he'll have 51 carries and 5 fumbles. So he's going to be hard to use because he's going to have a 1 in a 10 chance of fumbling it. So
yeah, that's it, and it's a shame. That's how those special teams fumbles get lumped into their rushing attempts. Yep. And and so it's really hurt the value of a lot of those stud returners that, work as a scat back or a third down back. It's really hurt some of those guys. I wish that I had, when I set up the spreadsheets, I wish that I had put fumbles in there. I hadn't thought of it and I didn't see it. Future drafts, I will have that. I figured out how to do it. And so you can actually see, it won't give the individual fumble percentage, but you'll see that the guy had 6 fumbles in a year. And then you can figure out 6 fumbles in 200 attempts. That's not a big deal. It's 3%, but that's, I try to do a good job with the spreadsheet, and there's going to be mistakes, but future years I'll have those built in, but watch out for those returners. They get clobbered by those fumbles.
Well, another little odd, I love punt returners. It's a big thing for me. If you've got a guy that's got a 11 or 12 yard punt return average, but he's got 50% fair catch, it's almost like being a 6 yard per punt return guy. So sometimes you get a guy that's only like 9 yards per punt return, but he's only got a fair catch on 10. He's constantly getting 7, 12 yards. And those guys have a lot of value too. So keep those, little things like that in mind. And
now, Tim, let me ask you, while you're on, when you prep for a draft, what resources do you have? Do you have all of the seasons? Do you look at all of there's the upcoming seasons for like running backs, quarterbacks, returners, or do you use the ratings guides, or what do you use?
Personally, I will mostly look at the stats, and for like skill positions, I'll try to look at their cards in the years that would make a big difference. So I'll give an example with Heath Sherman from last year. One of the reasons I liked him a lot. By the time I'd added or picked up Butts in round 1, I knew his weakest year would be first year 89 and then coming again in 92. So I was kind of valuing guys that had 92 as one of their better years. And I'd actually marked certain with highlight in the spreadsheet of guys who I liked their cards for certain years. And one of the ones was Sherman in both 90 and 92. And I realized, well, he'll help me carry wise at 90, and he's pretty good. But then he's got a great card in 92, only 9 attempts per game. But again, I've still got Butts to fall back on. So I don't have to use those 9 attempts in every game. It could be 15 one game, 3 in another game. So anyway, I'll mark certain like years that I like a guy and feel like he's pretty good or is going to help my team or fit in with what I'm needing. Like, for instance, if I was slotting guards right now, I'd give extra highlight to guys that are good. And I believe it's 91, 92. Look at my ratings real quick. And I've got huge holes in 91 and 92 at the guard position. What this is me just taking a look at my team as a whole and looking at who's going to start, who's going to be the backup in certain years. Like, for instance, I've only got one center last year, a 4-2. I've got a 4-3. But rather than try to look at my entire roster and different players, I'll try to break mine out like this to where I've kind of got an idea where I'm going to be strong or weak over the years. And I'll kind of do the same with my rushing attempts. Like last year, for instance, I only had 14 attempts per Tecmo game, and from Butts, and only 2 from Taylor. I've got a guy I've already deleted from here, Keith Jones, that gave me 4. So I only really had 20 attempts. The parenthesis is because I can't use these guys. Sherman had 100 fumble last year, and I didn't want to use him. So I've just kind of broke down the attempts I'm going to have over the year, so I can kind of see where I've got holes in needing attempts. And anyway, I kind of break out my team looking at it kind of like this, because like I say, sometimes it's just too much information for me to look at just the rosters themselves. And I think Jay does the same for draft prep. And I'll just show you one particular one. This is my linebacker draft prep. And what I've done is defense is just, you get 1 point for a 4, 2 for a 5, 3 for a 6. And I just add them up over their career. I'll just add their sacks up, and then I'll notate how many linebacker 6s there are. I've got a hidden column here where I've got rankings where I've actually ranked where I want to draft these guys if they were available and I wanted to draft them. But anyway, doing things like this really helps during a draft. You can kind of get a feel, well, there's going to be a big drop off at, say, after the 4th outside linebacker, after the 8th. And it's kind of good to get an idea of like the levels of available talent in each available draft.
Yeah. Let me double back. So when you say you look at the cards, you actually have the physical cards for those seasons?
Oh, no. Yeah, the card image.
The roster.
Yeah, I'll look at the card image itself. Like, for instance, I would pull up and, for instance, I've got 89 up now. I've got some of the future seasons. For instance, I'll go to 91. And if I was wanting to kind of look at my team, I could open my team up and take a look at various cards. But if I were to like be drafting like last year when I was drafting for the future, Keith Henderson's one of those guys. I ended up getting him really late. I got him like the 7th round, and he's mostly just a receiving back. But this one particular year, he's actually 4.1. He's got 137 carries. Not great, but he's usable. And I had marked his card as being somebody that I thought would fit my team in 91. He's a great receiving running back.
So you have some of the upcoming seasons, but not all of them.
I've actually got them all. I've just got 2 or 3 that are not installed due to computer crash, and I haven't gotten around to reauthorizing all the codes. But yeah, I've got all the computer seasons.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, guys, if you don't want to buy every season, I understand that, but it does, honestly, it helps. It helps to be able to look at the cards and so I have the ratings guides. Obviously I need those. That's what I use to create the spreadsheets for our drafts. So, very helpful with that. I have a lot of the season. I use the ratings guides to help me, determine card value with that. And then sometimes I do have some of the upcoming seasons. I don't have all of them yet. I'll get there, but that's expensive. And so, I get that. So just throwing it out there, different ways to try to look at, instead of just looking at 4.2 yards a carry, you don't know, one person's 4.2 a carry might be the equivalent of someone else's 3.6 a carry. You don't know for sure.
Yeah, and to me, you kind of want to look at and kind of know your style of coaching too. I know what, for instance, I spent a lot on Butts last year. A 1st-round pick on a guy that's got not a great receiver, can't end run, so he's got some holes to his game, and he's also not always a great strong runner. But I like and kind of value short yardage goal line situations a lot, and I knew he would almost always be good at that. He doesn't fumble much. Mm-hmm. So I kind of put it all together. It's like, I can work around the fact when he's in the game, I'm kind of down to 4 targets passing wise and don't really have an end run threat except for, maybe my quarterback's 2 attempts per game. So those are things I sort of had to take with Butts. You don't always get perfect players, but I would like to say I wasn't looking for a great strong runner as much as I was kind of wanting a guy that could get 4 yards regularly, right. So.
Yeah. Are you able to share the screen? I mean, I can show a preview of what I do with with a spreadsheet.
Sure. I don't know if I know how to do that.
If not, no big deal. But
I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't know that I know how to do it. See, Dennis is going to make fun of us on the
thing about if you want, I can email it to you. If you can take a look at it.
If you point your webcam up to it, that might be we could get it done without that.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. That's a good idea.
Otherwise, I definitely need Dennis's help to figure that out.
No problem. That'll be fine. So, thank you. My daughter just brought me cake. How about that? So here is what I did for like 75, and now I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. Can you see that? Can you see that, Tim?
Sort of. I can't make it out very well.
Okay.
Wish I knew how to do that. But I see you've got like colors, and I'm guessing like blue is better than another color, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah. So I color code a 6. I color code as blue. A 5 I do red, and then a 4 I do as green. So so it's just a way to visually see their good seasons there.
Dennis is
And then I have a point system, and as I weight more for different things, and different things I look for, and of course, in our leagues, using the emphasized 6 linebacker, I put extra weight on a 6 linebacker than like a 6 defensive tackle or something like that. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, Dennis is about to join us, so we'll be able to figure out how to do this. But
Yeah.
I kind of do the same. I've got a separate column for 6s, but I'm notating them. And like for offensive linemen, I'll have a separate column notating times there's 7 pass blockers, because that's something I want to know kind of separate from everything else.
Yep. And those 7 pass blockers are so hard to find. We talked not too long ago about how the offensive lines were, and I made a breakdown. Hi, Dennis.
Hey.
Hey, Dennis.
I made a breakdown of all of the percentages of 7s in these sets, and the 90s are microscopic. 80s, 90s, it's just a very small percentage of 7 pass blockers in these sets. So,
how could I give like Jay the opportunity to present?
So at the bottom of your screen, Jay, on the StreamYard page, at the bottom it'll say mute, stop cam, cam mic, share screen, and leave studio.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yep.
If you click share screen, it'll then take over. Right now, Tim's sharing his screen, but if you click that, then it'll ask Tim, do you want to let him share?
Oh, cool.
And you just say okay.
all right.
So give that a crack.
4th round pick to share the screen.
Well, all right. I think I've just about got it. Okay, so yeah, well, this is actually from 75 and the 75 draft. And
Perfect.
I just did. Thank you, Dennis. I just, I color code them, and then I assign the points, and then I'm able to rank them according to that. And of course, how the way I rank somebody is going to be different than how someone else ranks them. But that way I'm ready to go, and I'm going to pick according to the way I like it. So, now I've considered sharing something like that, but honestly, everyone's going to have a different taste, different taste on things, and I guess I kind of feel like people can do some work. I did a lot, so that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, let's talk real quick about like that first guy there. Go back to sharing your screen. So you said you give a little bit more into the 6 rated linebackers. So on the left side, you had a point system. So like if somebody was a 6, what number would you give them in your ranking as opposed to if they were a 5? And then you add it all up at the end. Like, is a 6 worth a 6, or you give it like an extra bump up? It's an 8 because of the 6th linebacker rule.
Yeah. There. Let me see if I've got my point system here. It's let's see. I don't know that I've actually got it, but I can sort of walk you through it. I assign I think it's 8 points I give for each 6. I give 5 points for each 5. I give 2 or 3 points for each 4. And then I assign points for pass rush too. And I add it all up, and then that's how many points they get for their career. And so that's Randy White was a monster. Fred Dean is great. So linebackers here with that.
What is the perfect linebacker? A 6, 12, 12. What kind of points would he get?
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to give a little bit extra for a middle linebacker than for an outside linebacker.
Oh, okay.
Because I love that the middle linebacker pass rush more than an outside linebacker without coverage responsibility.
Nice.
So let me. It's over here. I can look it up.
I do a similar thing with the offensive line for pass block ratings. For instance, when I'm doing run blocking, if you're a 4-0, I don't even count your run blocking 4 because I'm never going to put you on the field if you can't pass block with at least a 2. Just add those up, like, you're a 2 pass blocker 1 year, 5, you add those together. Except for a 7, I'll count those as 10 points because really that's about how far they are apart from a 5 to a 7 in Stratomatic. It's really more like 5 ratings difference. So I'll give those guys 10 points for being a 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is from a few years ago, but so I don't have the difference between an outside linebacker and inside linebacker like I do now. But back in the 75 draft, I would have given 10 for the run and another 12 points. So it would have been a 22-point season if you had a 6, 12, 12 outside or linebacker. So that's just how
Very cool.
So yeah.
See, I think that's fascinating to me. Like trying to figure out how you assigned a numeric value to a player that can cross over, many years, and then you can have one number that player is worth, even though it doesn't make much sense to somebody who's not, using your same point system. At least gives you an idea of how to like grab all the linebackers, do a sort based on the number you've given them, and then boom, you're set.
Yeah. Once we get more drafts in, I'll be able to say, wow, this guy's the most points at a linebacker in the last 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Junior Seau is going to be that kind of guy. Yeah. Junior Seau he's a long time. I think he's had 8 straight years at a 6, which is pretty remarkable.
12 total. Yeah, he's going to be one of the best values to ever come out in the draft.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So is that who Steve's picking? Are we going to get a little inside information here, Jay?
Steve is currently shopping the number 1 pick.
Okay, because he figures Emmett's going to go.
Yeah. So, and he we're not looking to break the bank, but you got to let the market play itself out. It's just not fair to, we did get contacted already. You just want to jump out of it, just to be fair to everybody. Emmitt Smith being a generational running back as he is, you want to let guys have a chance.
Right. So, I guess that's part of the reason why the trade got overturned, because I had the chance to get up into that number 1 spot. Just out of curiosity, if we had submitted the trade now, with it being a first-round pick for 1.5, it's still not going to go through, right?
No. I just see I see Jeff George as being a potential quarterback for him right there, and Jeff George is way, way, way more value than Mark Rippon at this point, to me anyway. Right. So.
Yeah. I figured as much, but I just wanted to find out if I blew it by just not waiting for the draft lottery to finish.
No, I was kind of looking at it as being like a 4th or 5th overall, 6th overall pick, and for me, I had Ripien valued down a little bit more, but, he does have that great 91 or 92 card coming up. So.
Yeah, I think a mid first-round pick or late first-round pick is fine. I was fine with that, but I just wish – I wish Denver would have been drafting like 10th or something like that, because then you could kind of justify it moving up from 16th to 10th with that extra 1 year 5 nose tackle. But I got a lot of linebacker I like, so it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, good. That was the fact that it had a chance of being Emmitt Smith that made it
sure
less.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, and frankly, he does, he should probably be building his team a bit more instead of,
especially when you consider the fact that you can only add 3 players in trade per offseason. That makes it a little more difficult to say, we see this all the time in other modern leagues where guys like maybe Nathan, sometimes myself, I never really trade off my entire draft, but trading away the first, 3 of the first 5 rounds, or I've seen Nathan trade away the whole draft. He'll go in there with nothing.
The next year, he'll give away his whole team.
The next season as well. Yeah, absolutely. He'd move his first if there wasn't the rule that you either had to have 2, a second and a third, or a 1. Right. So that's fine. I was talking to Tim. It's great to be involved in so many different style of leagues.
Sure.
And so, just different ways of doing it. I really like that we can only add 3 players, in that all of these teams are going to be flawed, especially with the talent pools as we are, instead of just always filling every hole, boom, 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 right? And, you make yourself a perfect team for the year, and, you don't have any fours anywhere, I think that's cool. I like that.
Well, look at our playoffs this year. We have so many teams in that, 9-7, 8-8, that range up to a 12-win team. There's not a ton of difference in talent between the number 1 seeds and the number 6 seeds in the playoffs. So it makes for really exciting playoff games. And I think that, you're going to see that as it goes on. Most of these games will be close. Very rarely will you have a big blowout like you had maybe in one game where it was just like, that was a crazy bad luck game. That was terrible. The Rams. Like, what are you doing? Like, right away, an interception off of a low split and then a fumble kickoff return. It's like that. Yeah. That's just one of those games you're never going to win.
Poor Washington. He had 4 turnovers before he had a first down.
Right.
What do you do with that? Right.
That's unreal.
NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
So,
all right, guys. I'm gonna jump off, but I'll listen later. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dennis. See you, bud. So, and he brings up the point too. You look at the top seeds, right? I had a good season, but and Jets had a great season. We don't have a single rated cornerback between the 2 teams. We're all zeros, right? And so, I mean, we're exposed, right? And so, yeah. And then you've got the number 1 seed over in the NFC is Mike Tomczak as his quarterback. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. And he does a great job with Mike Tomczak. He's done a great job with him. And he's underrated. He's got a really good long pass wrong card, but it's still is Mike Tomczak. And so, that's great. I love how these teams are, they're very human. I love that.
Yeah. Coming out of a charter draft, like we were talking about earlier today, you've got basically the teams that are kind of going for it, all having a shot at the same talent pool, and nobody's really accumulated any over the years to have an advantage coming into that draft. So for the first year or second year, third year and such, you'll have a lot of teams that are going to be very similar because, they were kind of competing against each other for players that were good in the first 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's good.
But those were most of the main points I think we wanted to cover. I wanted to kind of go over one more thing. It seemed like on the spreadsheet. Oh, yeah, I was just going to say there's different ways you can do all these things, but one of the biggest things is put yourself a rank column in. Like, say, I've got that one hidden here, but get something where you've kind of basically got a little ranking for your first 15 or 20 players, or if you don't want to rank them, put whatever round you kind of feel like they ought to go in. This is like a 3rd round guy, 5th round guy. And you don't have to get exact ranks. It's funny, NFL Ed and I were talking about this one time about rankings. We might have 17 guys ranked 80th best in the draft. It's just kind of a general placeholder. I know the 80th guys I don't like as well as the guys I have rated 50th, and probably better than the 10 or 15 to 20 guys I have rated 100. But just get some sort of basic rank so you've kind of got a feel for when, a certain talent or a certain positional depth is going to drop off the draft board. If you're kind of looking at getting a tight end that can start for you the next 3 or 4 years, wow, there's only a couple of them available. Like, look at the tight ends this year. There's only a couple of them available that give you over 3 of them that give you over 60 catches. So there's not a lot of tight ends. If you're thinking I'll get a starting tight end in round 4, it's not going to work out this year. So.
Yep. I'm going to grab the screen real fast if you don't mind. Do you have to click on something to say it's okay?
Yeah, go right ahead, and I'll click you on.
Huh. Try to.
Dennis, we don't really need you now.
Well, let me try it again here. There we go.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, exactly like you said. Now, I know that Ed, he ranks player by player, like 1 through 80, and assigns a number to them. I'm more clump them, like here in the 75 draft, I had them by round. These were all guys I saw as potential first rounders. And then I might try to rank them some. I didn't for this one, but then I might try to rank them some within the round. But then I'm going to kind of do it alphabetical too. When I get to me, I don't know that, in the third round, I know who I like best, but I don't know, I don't like to necessarily put a numerical number because guys are going to be picking them off and it's going to be dependent on need. And so anyway, I sort by round, like you said. So, yeah. And it's interesting. It's funny. I heard, it was Pat Kerwin talking about how people, draft, and everyone says, take the best player on the board. Oh, take the best player on the board. Don't draft by need. And he said, we always draft by need. You only draft by need. It's usually you can find a really good player that fits a hole. Now sometimes you might a little bit, but he said for the most part, it's a combination. It's not an either or, best player or need. It's you can usually find a mix, a really good player that fills the need.
And I feel like almost all of us stretch a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm going to say this is a fourth best player on the board from overall right now, but this one that's fourth best fits my needs better. As long as you don't reach too badly. If you've got the second overall pick in this draft, you may really need a wide receiver, but you're not going to pass up Sayah or Tony Dorsett to take, Terrence Mathis.
Of course, right? Or maybe you're loaded at linebacker, so you take John Randall, right? Or something like that. And if you don't need Junior Seau and you take John Randall, there's nothing wrong with that. So usually you're getting a really, really good player that fills a hole. So I was fortunate enough to get Dan Marino, the best players on the board. If it's a quarterback, I'm not going to take him, right? And so that is what it is. So anyway,
let's just take a quick look here. Let's see. Yeah. What else would you like to talk about? I think we've hit most of the things we talked about earlier. So
no, that sounds great. I hope that someone kind of, if anyone gets anything from it, great. If nothing else, I've enjoyed talking with you. So it's great to catch up. So.
Yeah, we ought to probably do one of those some point between now and the draft, where maybe we just do a chat room. Anybody wants to join in, we can get in and talk about people. Maybe find out if Dan's going to take so-and-so and, round one, so we can move ahead of him with a trade.
There you go. Exactly right. And it'll be fun. It's fun to, shoot the breeze. I don't know if, I guess, I could probably maybe someone does a mock draft like Tom or something like that. I give Tom credit in that he is an open book when it comes to, or almost an open book when it comes to draft research. He holds a little bit back for himself, but I give him credit for that. That's he does a nice job. And when it comes to like the mock draft for the zone team, I think he usually lets Dennis make the pick for him. So, he's not giving up his guy. And that's cool, and so maybe we do something like that and let someone else pick for me or something along those lines. So.
Yeah, it's not really fair to ask somebody to do all your work for you in your draft prep. It's like take the best offensive tackle, for me at this point in the draft. If you're giving somebody a draft, you at least want to kind of work out a list. But yeah, I don't mind sharing things. And if somebody wants to know, where do you think so-and-so might go, that's sort of like that. I'm pretty comfortable with that. But if somebody's like, give me your top 20 offensive tackles, even in SEMIFA draft where we don't know, the 15th drafted tackle may end up being better than the number one guy, but especially in retro drafts, I mean, we can all kind of look those up, and you don't really want to draft against your own team. So that's another good reason to do draft prep is, if you get into a situation late where you need to tell somebody to draft for you, you've kind of got to start on a list.
Where we see it is, and it's all good, is when someone says, take me what's the best coverage team open available, and so, well, here's what we got. These are the top two on my list, take.
Or is there any quarterback fours still on the board? I don't mind. this guy and this guy are still on the board.
Yep, exactly. So yeah,
But you're right. You do all the draft prep, and it's not really something you want to throw out there because you're doing different rankings, and it is very subjective. I put a lot of value, like say we talked about it, pass blocking sevens. Somebody else, I'd rather have a guard 5-0 than a 0-7. I prefer the 0-7. So our weighting is going to be different on things as well. I'll take a guy like Pete Banaszak, who's 3.4 on the card, but has a good guess right and low fumbles. And I like him better than somebody who runs a lot better, like Scarber, my other fullback, but he fumbles a lot, but he's got a lot of guess wrong, but not such good guess right. So you get into personal preferences on things like that too. You got guys who like long gain receivers, like I wanted with Elway. Had I had a Bear type of quarterback, I'd have probably been more interested in good hands guys that have short columns. So
yeah, a Ricky Prohl type. How about him? He's around forever, right? 2004, 2005, something like that.
One of those guys I'm really hoping somebody drafts ahead of me because I don't want to take Ricky Prohl. I don't like possession guys like that, but I take him anyway.
Yep. So
guys drop almost everything, so it's really dramatic if they just catch one, like Flipper.
Yeah. So it's like you said, there's a lot of personal preference there, and and you want to build your team what works for you. When I was able to get Marino right away, I'm like, I need 7 pass blockers. I need to get 7 pass blockers. That's where I'm going. And so you'll notice that you took Gruber on me right ahead of me. And so, thanks a lot.
You got Zimmerman and somebody else.
I wound up with Bruce Armstrong and Jim Lachey. I think that's Jim Lachey. So I got 2 good ones there, and then I took Bruce Matthews way up there.
Didn't you get Ironhead Haywood later?
Yep, Ironhead 7. A 7 forever. So, and the way there's all these crazy pass rushing outside linebackers, to have that 7 sitting back there is a great weapon, and so that's just someone like that. You got to be able to pass protect, and then so
that makes a good point. I'd meant to bring up, and I even forgot to write it down, and that's some error specific ratings. Like Jay's talking about, there's not many pass blocking 7s right now, so those are valuable things to gather. And right now we're in an era where there's a lot of really good pass rushing outside linebackers. I put Ken Harvey really high last year, but almost every year there's a bunch of Ken Harveys in the draft. So, I realized I was investing a lot in something that was going to be kind of out there. Sort of like in the 70s era in IFL, you're like, man, I got a great receiver, 18 yards a catch. He's got long gains on 2-3 right and 5 and, something wrong. There's about 10 or 15 guys like that each year in the 70s. It's a big deal in the Deshaun Jackson modern era where there's only 1 or 2 like that every year. There's a dime a dozen in the 70s. So there'll be certain ratings that they're a lot more common. Right now, we're in a great era for nose tackles. In Tepco League, there's a lot of 5s and 6s in the league. But coming up shortly, there's not going to be that many great nose tackles. So.
Yeah. I'm looking at the spreadsheet that I did for offensive linemen. It's on my other computer here. And so in 1990, there were only 15 7s in the entire set out of 28 teams. So 0.54 per team. So only 15 7s in the entire set. 91, there's only 14. And so they are extremely scarce, and that's and really throughout much of the 90s, it's just not great. And so it starts to, when you get into 98, 99 is when you start to see about 1 per team, about 1-7 per team, the late 90s. So Dan Moore, if you're listening, I'm not going for first down free safety blitzing until the end of the decade. All right. There aren't enough 7s out there. And I got them all. So it's for everyone else. It's not for me, pal. So anyway, we talk about that a lot. Dan likes his hair's on fire. He likes to blitz. So anyway, yeah. So Well, very good, very good. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll just throw out one more thing. You're talking about like I'm on a tight roster right now where I don't have many spots. But if you're on an open roster, you want to look at the same stuff too. For instance, me looking at trade targets for opponents earlier today, I was looking because I've got extra tight ends and I've got a guy that plays wide receiver and tight end and fills roster slots. I was looking at teams that had one tight end. There's only 7 available in the draft before we add older guys. So there's a little extra value in tight ends. And if I had one tight end, I definitely would like to acquire one before I went into the draft needing them. That was the way I was last year. I went into the draft with 0 tight ends, and I knew I needed to add 3 somehow, some way. So put a little extra value on guys like that. But if you kind of know what your roster holes are, like I say, it'll kind of help you kind of realize the urgency going into the draft if you're in a really, restricted position. And if I need 3 defensive backs, for instance, and I'm kind of, well, I don't really need a starter so much as I just need volume. It's not really that big a deal. I can worry about getting those at a later point in the draft. Where, like I say, if I'm needing a tight end, I've got to be deciding: do I want to spend a first or second round pick? I'm probably not going to see these guys in round 4, many of the good ones, or do I want to go acquire somebody who's just kind of a filler? He may be a kind of a C or C minus kind of tight end, but it's better than having a D that is a 4 run blocker with a 11-yard long for the year. So,
yeah. And you mentioned trading too, and I created the channel for guys to talk about trade and stuff like that, and that's a good way to get stuff out there. But from SEMIFA, we know that a lot of times if we put our guys out there, we'll do okay. We might get some offers, but sometimes a lot of guys just aren't into that. And so a lot of times you have to actually go to the rosters and turn over the rocks and and shake the tree a little bit and see what falls out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was doing today. I was like, I've had this kind of posted for a day or two, got no action. I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And so I think I tell you right now that, for instance, Atlanta's only got 1 tight end going into next year, Denver, Detroit. So I'm going to kind of look at these teams and try to figure out, well, all I'm looking to do is not add a pick as much as just move up a little bit in the draft. Hey, which positions in round 5, I'll give you this extra tight end I've got that I might or might not end up cutting anyway. So.
Yeah, it's a little tougher not having the draft order exactly set, but to move up from the 5th round into the 4th round, you've got an idea. And I've found that I've had to do that a lot through the years too, where I have like a 5 for the year. I've had to do this in like an IFL, a 5 outside linebacker. I can't use them, right? I find someone that can use them and say, all right, and I'm not trying to take his 2nd round pick, but I want to get something that works for both of us, right? And so, maybe a trade from, the 4th round into the 3rd round or something like that. And so he's happy. He's got a nice starter for the year. I get something for it that I can, I feel good about, and, you move on. And so, and trading shouldn't be about, getting somebody. And most of our, we're not that way. We're not, we're not out to beat somebody in a trade, but you want to find something that works for both guys and, make the teams better. So
yeah, and it's important to cut, like we were talking about with the rosters. If you're going into the season right now, you need 48 players, and you've got 33. You've got 10 or 12 draft slots. It might be good for you to make I'll give you my 6 for your 7th and 8th or something like that. But you're going to need some ways to bring in some guys. And hopefully they're not just going to be 1-year guys. Maybe there's somebody, okay, it's not great, but he's a guard 0-3 for the next 4 years, and I've only got 2 guards, period. And this year he could actually start for me. You'll be surprised in a league of this size how often that career safety 4, he's like a 4 5 times and a 0 2 others. Those guys start for almost everybody. We have 1 5 per team in the secondary sometimes, or 0 in your case.
So. Yeah, and if someone's out there and they're like, oh, what do they think this guy's worth, or what should I do here? What do you think? Ask any of us. We'll shoot you straight. We're not going to be like, I'm not going to tell you about this guy, or no, yeah, he's great. I'll tell you straight up, something, what I think of the guy, what I think of him, and where I think he'll go. And it's my opinion, and take it for what it's worth. But I'll tell you my honest opinion.
Yep, and I'll be honest. When I first started in modern leagues, where you're evaluating real players in real time and such, I almost never made a trade my first couple of years without asking Wayne Unruh or NFL Ed or somebody like that. What do you think of me, offering my 26-year-old safety five for a backup wide receiver or something like that? Well, I feel like you could get that's great feedback until you can kind of get a sense. After a while, you're like in Samifa, we kind of know if it's a last year of his career and he's a 5 cornerback. Is that a 6th rounder? More like a 3rd? It's probably a 4th. We've kind of got a feel for where those guys are going to fall after years. And a lot of guys are in their 1st or 2nd retro league. And that's why I was talking about the years. If you're in round 1, you kind of want to get 6 or 8 years out of a guy, unless you're getting a couple of elite running back years. You don't want to take a 3-year player, even if he's safety 6 for 3 years. It's a lot of value, but very short career. And about
Right.
3rd and 4th rounds, you're taking guys that might last a year or two. So
You hit the nail on the head. The running backs, you'll see that. I could see Rodney Hampton and Barry Foster both being, nice 1st-round picks. They don't last that long, they flame out pretty quickly. But boy, you get a lot of bang for that buck, a lot more bang for that buck than that safety.
big splurge for me last year was taking Heath Sherman. I mean, I'm looking at really 2 big years and another that he's kind of an okay 3.6 fullback and such. But I'm looking at 2 big years, but they fit in my window to where they're going to help me in years that I can be pretty good at. And Kenneth Davis, and got a pretty good deal out of him. He's not going to be your lead 200 carry back maybe more than once, but you could get a lot of usable carries for a guy like that. And, 2nd 11 and such, a couple times a game, he's a really nice piece to have.
Yeah, he fits too, kind of with the Marino thing, because he's going to be guessed wrong a lot. And, and obviously I'm looking to pass a lot with Marino. And so, he's a good fit. He's a good fit.
And I'm just going to throw a guy out there just because, we kind of talk about, kind of figure out what a guy's going to do for you. Larry Centers is going to be in this draft. Now, there'll be years he's got 100 catches and, 900 yards and such, but a lot of times he's going to be over 50 carries or 75. He's going to take up one of those running back slots for you a lot of those years. And how great is his running or receiving cards, really? Most of the time they're going to be pretty good, but is that guy really a 1st-round pick? Probably not. You're probably looking at a guy that's more of a, 3rd roundish, something like that. But, you see the stats sometimes and the numbers will jump out. Wow, 900 yards receiving. But if he's loaded with +5s and +6s in the middle of his flat card, some of the receivers, like we were looking at Henderson earlier, has got +11s, +10s. You've got guys that do better with many fewer receptions, but the stats look really good for a guy like Centers. You got to be careful. I was wondering about Moose Johnston last year. He went about where I thought he should, mid-2nd, I want to say. I believe Denver, if I'm not mistaken, but that's about where he should go. But a guy like Moose, wow, he's a 6 run blocker every year, but that doesn't come up a whole lot. So
yeah, I agree. Centers, handy player, nice player. He's not going to keep someone from keying your primary back. He's not a good runner. And so, so he's just an extra target out of the backfield. And usually his cards, as I've looked at him, he's generally just a flat pass catcher. He's okay catching short passes some years, and he probably goes long a few years, but he's not, someone you want to count on for that. I think 3rd round sounds exactly right for Larry Centers. If you spend a 1st-round pick, you do what you want. I wouldn't do it.
Right. He's a long career and he's got a specialty, but I like a guy like we're talking about Cam Haywood or Ironhead Hayward a lot better because he's a 6'7" a lot of years. He's got really better receiving yardage a lot of times on his cards than a lot of Centers cards will. But the 6'7" has got a lot of everyday value for you right away.
Yeah, and Ironhead actually pulls out some nice rushing years too. It's weird. Every so often they're like, "Hey, let's give Ironhead the ball."
Yeah.
right? And Ironhead knew what to do with the ball. So
Yeah.
he's dead now. Did you know that?
He's what?
He's dead. He died about 5 years ago. So he died young. He had like some kind of heart attack or something. So yeah. So, but boy, he was a neat player. I still remember him doing a commercial with in the shower at some sort of Ironhead. What's it, the little thingy? It was a great commercial. Check it out sometime.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. So,
well, we're going to wrap it up here. Anyway, we'll do another one of these sometime. But like I say, we just kind of wanted to throw this out there for those of us who might not have been through a lot of retro drafts and would kind of like to have some different ways of looking at it. This is kind of some of the things Jay and I think about.
Very good. Yeah, we'll see. We'll put together some kind of draft show. It'll be fun.
Yep.
So,
well, everybody take care. All right. Thanks, Jay.
Good job.
Thank you.